On our last trip south, before the stay-at-home orders and the travel restrictions due to the COVID-19, we found ourselves in Alabama, specifically Lake Guntersville State Park, for the RV Entrepreneurs Summit.
The RV Entrepreneur Summit has been an annual thing where like-minded individuals, basically people who live and travel in RVs, who specifically are more kind of entrepreneurial in terms of their spirit, operating businesses out of their RV, starting their own businesses, that sort of thing. And we've kind of followed it for a couple of years now. We attended virtually the first year, and then last year we attended in person at Lake Guntersville State Park. We were scheduled to attend again this year. Right before the summit was when a lot of the concerns over COVID-19 were setting in. Certain states had started to shut some things down or pull some things back, really. And Heath and Alyssa Paget, who put on the summit and do a great job with it, made the decision not to have a lot of people come together in a relatively small space in terms of meeting rooms and conference areas, that sort of thing. And in less than a week, actually converted it over to a virtual summit. So that was pretty impressive. They were able to do that. Big shout out to Heath and Alyssa for doing that for the attendees.
Even though the in-person event was canceled, many of us already found ourselves at the state park or headed to the state park. Some people had been camped there for a month, a few people were starting to trickle in, more were expected over the next few days. And so anybody who was relatively close by, we all had reservations already for at least a week or more. And so many of us decided that we would still go ahead and camp at the state park there. It was really nice that the state park was, at least at that time, still letting people come in. The bathrooms were open, all the facilities were still open. The really only restriction at that point was no groups larger than, I think, 50 people. And seeing as we didn't have that many with us at this point in time, there were a few friends that were hanging out, we were able to still gather as a community, keeping some social distancing parameters in place, but that really actually wasn't 100% a thing at that time, and we still weren't sure what to think. So we were there for the week sort of as our own little sheltered community, enjoying each other's company, still learning from each other, and having a good time.
It was an interesting time, as we said in the previous video, because we were on Anna Maria Island in Florida and kind of in a little bubble from the COVID-19 craziness that was starting to happen. And we were headed back up home to Michigan and had our reservations in Alabama and decided to stop there and see who was still there. It was interesting because I almost felt like we went from one bubble to another once we got into the state park, because everybody who was there, we were all clustered together. And some people had already been there for a while. We were there for about, the week or whatever it was. And so everybody was practicing good, personal hygiene and washing hands a lot and trying not to get
and
right
elbow
up.
Bumping.
Yeah, no handshakes, lots of elbow bumping, because it was still kind of an unknown period. We didn't know what was going to happen. So it was really sort of as things were really closing in. But a big part of what we like about a summit like that and about the RV life is the community that has formed around people who are of that like mind, who like RVs, who like to travel, who like hanging out, with people online for a while and then in person, and you're not really strangers. So it's a great community, and you learn from each other.
One of my favorite parts about traveling and hanging out with the community is all the different food you get to try, because everybody has their own different styles. They're from different parts of the country. They may have dietary restrictions. And so while we were there for the week, one night somebody did a whole beer and food pairing tasting night, and that was really cool. And then another night we did plant night.
To share with people, because I'm never going to do it by myself.
Tonight's dinner is brought to you by Plants. We're having a plant-based dinner for meat eaters to kind of see what all you can do with plants. And so far we got some really awesome stuff, some pad thai, potato salad, chili, cauliflower, you name it, it's here and it's all delicious. Even though Ari and I are big meat eaters, we do love our bacon and our hamburgers and everything. I have to say I really enjoyed plant night, just because it's not really my style of cooking. It's not that I couldn't do it or we wouldn't eat it. It's just, I just don't really think about doing it that way. But I think we had some pretty good dishes that night.
We did, and what I find interesting is people that have a plant-based diet like that, you'll go in and you'll go try something that they've made, and it's not that we wouldn't do it. I don't think we think about putting it together in that way. And people come up with some really interesting dishes.
I really wanted to get some of the recipes from those because they were really tasty.
And it was just a fun night to hang out and kind of, talk to everybody a little bit more and see what we were doing and what we were going to do next. There was a lot of conversations about what people were going to do, because what a lot of folks don't realize, if you have a full-time RVers, whether it's a couple or a family or an individual, they were starting to figure out, what do we do if travel restrictions get put into place, as they did? Where do you go if you normally live in your rig on the road? And we think, thankfully, most people have found some place to hunker down. So that was good to see that. We still have our sticks and bricks in Michigan, so that's where we're at right now. But yeah, it is something to think about, and it was stressful for some folks. So it was nice, I think, to have a community around them as well to kind of talk through ideas. And it was interesting too, and I thought was great, was the number of people that offered to others. Hey, we're going to be going to this location. We think there's other places to be there. We're going to be going to this location, and we might know somebody with property nearby that could put you up. So just a great opportunity for the community to stick together again.
In addition to just hanging out with our friends there, we still were working our full-time jobs, and especially since the summit was canceled, we had no excuse not to work. So we were still doing that. But at night, it was gorgeous to watch the sunset over Lake Guntersville. The park is huge. There's hundreds of acres with miles of trails. There are bald eagles flying everywhere. There's just a lot to do.
It is a really interesting part of Alabama. People don't think about, mountains and curvy roads and things in Alabama. And, it's really a pretty area. And Lake Guntersville State Park is amazing. There's a lot of stuff to do for families. There's a lot of stuff to do if you like hiking and mountain biking in the area. There is a massive lodge at the top of one of the hills or mountains, depending on where you're from. It's either a hill or a mountain. But, and then you can actually hike straight up to the lodge. And, we've done that before, which is a lot of fun. If you don't necessarily camp or have an RV, but you want to go enjoy that state park and that area and the things to do, check out the lodge, because it really is a pretty place.
Yeah, the lodge is great. That's actually where the summit was supposed to be. So there are big conference rooms available. They also use those for weddings. And there's a lovely dining room. There's a gorgeous terrace overlooking Lake Guntersville, as well as they have some cabins to rent too. So it's just a really nice place.
The other thing that they have up at the top of the mountain up by the lodge is a ziplining company. And we decided to go ahead and take the plunge, I guess would be a bad way to put it, but we decided to go for the ziplining tour, and I'm really glad we did. That was a lot of fun.
We had a blast ziplining. We have done this in the past and thoroughly enjoyed it, and we had seen the ziplining course last year, but just didn't have a chance to do it. So when all of our activities got canceled and we had our weekend free, we decided that we would go ahead and do it. And it was amazing. There was, I don't even know, what was the one, like 100-some feet. I don't even remember what the big one was across the whole canopy. It was just amazing.
It was actually, I think you ended up for ziplining almost for a full minute, which if you've not done ziplining, that's a really long time to be on a zip line. So that was great to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Hi! This is the longest one. Looking forward to it. Super excited.
There we go. All right, ball up, stay straight, okay? Clear the one, clear the one.
All right.
There you go.
Ready to go.
There are two different levels they offer there, and there's level 1 and level 2. Obviously, level 2, it's a little bit higher. You go a little bit longer.
And by a little bit, I mean a lot higher.
Yeah, it's a lot higher. Okay. And there's areas of, I mean, you've got everything, you've got zip lines that you're doing. There's some cable rope bridges. There was one area where we were doing more like a tightrope kind of walk with cables. So shouldn't really be afraid of heights if you're going to do that. But I will say, compared to other places we've been zip lining, you have, the safety hooks that you hook on one at a time, two at a time, that kind of a thing. This had a really unique system where you latched in at the beginning and you essentially were locked in. You weren't falling anywhere. You weren't going anywhere with that system.
No, I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, you hooked in and then your cord was essentially on the cable the whole time, or your clamp, as opposed to the tube system that we've done other places. So that was just really unique. But we just had a blast. I think the level 1 is designed for kids or people who maybe are afraid of heights but still want to try it because it's a shorter course. There's only about 5 zip lines. And then when you get into level 2, I think there were 10 to 15 that we went on of varying lengths and heights, plus the bridges that you mentioned. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, and I've tried to convince you to be one. And so we just had a blast. I mean, our tour guides were great. It wasn't the best weather day because the forecast was wrong. And so it was pretty cloudy and kind of windy, but I think that just made it that much more enjoyable and memorable.
Yeah, it was pretty chilly when we were up there a couple of times waiting for, other zipliners to go and kind of wait when the wind came across. But I really enjoyed that we did that. I do think, obviously, you're going to pay more if you do level 2 versus level 1. It's more than double the length, too. So, you have to think about that. Is it worth the money to do it? I'm glad we did the level 2 and paid for it. I think if I had done just a level 1 and we got to see what they did, because level 1 is the first part of level 2, I would have hesitated and thought, boy, was that really worth it? By the time I got out with level 2, it was worth the extra money. And I thought it really was it's going to cost you some money to do it. It's not a crazy amount, but it is just something you have to think about if you want to budget for it.
I think anytime that we're in an area and we have to make a decision whether we want to participate in an activity or not, I mean, we do have to stop and think about it, because you could spend a lot of money as you're touring the United States, full-time or part-time traveling, and all these different activities. And so you do kind of have to balance that. But this is something we like to do, and it was a little bit of a splurge, but I'm so glad we did it. And we just have to balance that, as I'm sure you do as well in your daily life or in your travel life, what's worth it to you and what's not. And there are some adventures that I think are just well worth it, because as we've talked about before, it's really about the lifestyle and the adventures and what you're seeing and doing. It's not so much about the stuff. And so, we try not to collect too many pieces of souvenirs and spend our monies, because we live in a van. Where are we going to put the souvenirs? And I'd rather have the memories than just a bunch of clutter.
Right. The money we spent was for the experience, and it was a tremendous experience. The exhilaration of doing a zip line, especially a super long one, getting to see being over the canopy and looking out and seeing Lake Guntersville from, you feel like you're flying up there, right? So it just, it was a lot of fun. And I think if you're going to spend money for an experience, I think that's a great way to splurge.
Whether you like crazy adventures like ziplining, or you just like hiking, or maybe bird watching, or going boating, Lake Guntersville State Park is awesome, and we highly recommend that you get there and check it out.
As we mentioned, it is in Alabama. It's a little bit south of Huntsville, if I remember correctly. So consider checking that out and seeing what there is to do there. You mentioned a few different things to do. It is, no matter whether you're alone or as a couple or a family, there's something for you to do at Lake Guntersville State Park. Obviously, we think it's a great place. Hopefully, travel restrictions are lifted before too long, and we are all going to start traveling to new places. So when the travel restrictions are lifted, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.
Wait. What?
They were making fun of me for going all over.
Oh. Stand up. Let's go all the way to the tree.
You can. I just couldn't touch here. It's the way to go back.
Oh.
All right, guys.
Woo! We're done.
You survived.
Woo!